Hi designers, it's Haley with Silver Moon Design School and I'm back. As you can see, I'm in a brand new apartment, so a lot has changed since I last made a video. I took off some time originally just for the holidays, and then work took off for me, client work blew up, and I moved and I had a vacation, so life just got ahead of me. And now I'm back to bring you a tutorial. This was a special request from Arabinda. He left a comment. He wants to know how to make a mailer box, a shipping box, one that kind of folds up and you could add stickers to. So I'm going to show you how to make this in Adobe Illustrator and Adobe Dimension. It's using Creative Cloud software you probably already have, and it's an easy, simple way to make a mock-up. Once you learn all the tools, it'll take you no time at all. If you're running short on time, your deadline's coming up, and you just need a quick fix, I do offer this template, this design on my Creative Market. You can find that at silvermoondesignschool.com, or I'll post the link below so that you can have the mock-up that you need in the time frame that you need it. But if you have some time and you're ready to learn, let's get started and dive into the tutorial. All right, so first we're going to start off in Adobe Illustrator. I have a new document created here where I've placed my reference image on a layer labeled reference, and then I've created a design layer above for my workspace and where I'm going to create my objects. So first thing is to place your image in, which I've already done, and I'm going to select it and I'm going to click embed. That's so in case I move that file on my desktop later on, I'll still have a copy of it in here. And then I'm also going to lock the reference layer so that I don't accidentally move it around as I'm tracing over and creating the shapes. I also have brought in some different elements. This is what I'm going to use in my designs. A lot of the time you will have a die lines or something more detailed, but for my purposes here, I'm just going to reference my logos and different color palettes. This will come in handy in phase 2 where we go into Adobe Dimension. So first thing is I'm going to come down and I'm going to do my best from this reference image to get the specs. Again, if you have die lines, you'll have very exact dimensions, but I'm just going to show you how to recreate from an image as well. So selecting my design layer, I'm just going to trace over this shape, and I'm gonna match up as best as I can the dimensions. It's gonna take a little bit of guesswork here, but I'm gonna say that this is probably close. All right, so let me make it a little bit wider. Okay, but it looks like this is about the dimensions that we're working with as far as proportions go. So now that I have the base of the box, I'm going to flip to just the outline version, and I'm going to make this stroke a little bit thicker so that this can be this inside layer of the box. And I'm going to go over to my 3D materials panel. If this doesn't show up for you here, it's under Window and then 3D materials right at the top of the selections there in this section. And from here, I'm going to click on Extrude. And here's again where I'll have to guess the depth, which again, use the specs if you have them in your die lines, but I think this default is pretty good and I'm aiming for close to perfect. So I think that is going to give us what we want. And then we can also go into the bevel options here and turn those on. If I want to give the edges here, see if I zoom in, the edges, I can give them a little bit of roundness to replicate the kind of round edges that we have here. And then also I'm going to take my tool here with the corners and I'm going to bring in the corners just ever so slightly to like 0.1 just to give it a little bit of softness, add a little bit of realism so it's not so sharp. But this is what we're going to use as the base. Next, we're going to create the bottom of the box. So I'm going to drag, make a copy, and instead of using the outline, I'm going to come over here to the colors and I'm going to swap those around so that I have a solid shape and then turn off the bevel. And I'll also need to reduce the depth pretty thin. I want it to have a little bit of weight, which is why I'm not using plane. Plane will make the shape 3D, but it'll make it very flat. You won't have any depth options. So since I want a little bit of depth, I'm going to use extrude still. And I think 0.2 on the nose is going to give me what I want there. So again, I'm going to put that to the side because that is going to be the bottom of our box. Next, I want to create these overlapping shapes here that go over so that the tabs can flip in. So I'm going to, again, make a copy. And to make this, I'm just holding Option Shift and then clicking and dragging to make that duplicate. You can also just hit Command D and that'll make another copy for you. Command C, Command V, but I like holding Option Shift and then just dragging down. So that's how I do that. And I'm going to actually turn off the 3D and materials under the appearance panel here for a little bit. I'm just going to delete that because I want to use the width here and I just want to see that a little bit more clearly. So I'm going to come here and use my scissors tool to snip those anchor points, and I'm going to delete that. So this gives us the width. But I also need to know the depth that we were using. So I'm using 0.6944. Let's just make it 0.7 for ease and convenience. So 0.7. Okay, so we have 0.7 and I'm gonna use the line. So I'm hitting the line shortcut, but you can just come over here to the line setting. I'm going to just click, and the length I'm gonna put is 0.7. And it gave me a diagonal. That's okay. We can straighten that out using Shift and rotate, but this is going to be that depth, right? So what I'm going to do is make another copy of that, and connecting those two with my pen tool, I'm going to create that overlap there, creating that arch that's going to flap over. So if you're looking at the box at this part straight on, it would be this loop right there. So that's what we're trying to create. And then with this piece, I want to come over to transform, and it's going to tell me what the height is. It's basically 1.5. So I am going to highlight this shape, this arch that we've created, click on extrude, and then choose 1.5. And then we can also adjust the stroke. So if I wanted it to be a little bit thinner there, you can see the amount of stroke is the thickness of the wall there. So we'll maybe 1.5 is going to be good for that. I think that'll work for what we are doing. And then I think we're good on this shape. You don't really need this line. This is just to get a measurement. You could also just look in the transform over here, but sometimes it's nice just to have a quick thing so you don't accidentally bump or mess up your shape. So that is how I'm going to create that. And then in Dimension, I'll show you how to overlay that over top of these sides there. But for now, we have that piece all set. So I'm going to move this to the side if I can get a hold of it. There we go. And we'll also use that 2 times, one on each side. So 2 birds, 1 stone, easy peasy. We'll stick with that. Now we need to create the top shape. So what I'm going to do, we might need to do a little tweaking later on, but I'm just going to copy the base that we have here, and I'm going to hang on to that, and I might just shrink it down ever so slightly because you can see it needs to tuck inside of the box and the shapes that we have. And with this width plus this addition, the overhang, we're going to need to just do some adjustments. So I'm going to just guess and squeeze the shape in just a little bit so that I think it'll sit nicely once we attach it in Dimension over here. All right, so the next step is to create these flaps that tuck into the box and keep it secure for shipping. But what we're going to do first is we're just going to do a little organization. So I'm going to go ahead and export these as single assets. I'm going to call this one box base, just so that I know which is the top and which is the bottom since they are slightly different. So then this will be box top. We'll also take the frame here and say box frame. And then this will be the box arch, for lack of a better word for it. I don't know all the words, you guys. Okay, box arch. So now that I know which one's the top, I'm going to drag that down here, and we're going to use this as the basis for the rest of our pieces. So I'm going to have to toggle off the eyeball of the 3D materials for now because I do want to measure what this flap is. The other option is that we can take the depth here if you want it to go seamless, but I'm just going to eyeball it because I think it would be good for it to overhang just a little bit so we could add like a sticker or something. But if you wanted it to go all the way down, then we would just reference the 3D materials panel and choose 0.7 for the height. But I'm just going to bring over here and eyeball it. We'll shrink it down to about there. You can see that's at 0.53. But again, if you wanted it longer to match up with the edge exactly, you can definitely do that. From here, I'm going to toggle back on 3D materials and you'll see it's the same depth, hopefully. Let's check that actually. I might have some settings scaling some things and that looks like it's the case. So I'm just going to go and tweak to 0.02 for the thickness so we're consistent across the board here. Next, I'm going to copy this shape and I'm going to replicate as best as I can the top tab here. So let me go ahead and place it here and just shrink down. I'm just eyeballing it based on the example. If you have die lines, it's going to go a lot better. And even this one might be a better one to reference because it's a little bit wider or like a little more straight on. So I think I'm going to reference that one. And then to create the curve, I'm going to select A from my keyboard to get this direct selection tool and just click on one of the anchor points. Did you see how all of them were highlighted before? Now just the one is highlighted. And I'm going to drag on this circle until we're almost at the bottom. But I want to leave a little bit of room because I'm also going to select this one and drag that in slightly because it does also have a curve based on the example. So I'm going to make a copy of the top lid just so I don't accidentally delete that. I'm going to turn off 3D materials and then I'm going to draw a new rectangle that matches the height of this piece. And I'm going to shrink it down just slightly because it's a little bit shorter than that panel. There's that cutout in the reference. And then I'm going to drag until we're right about there with the shape. Perfect. Okay, so now I'm going to use the direct selection tool and just use shift and nudge to bring those left edge anchor points up and down. So we're at like, I don't know, I did bad at geometry surprisingly, so I don't know the shape. Is this a rhombus? Let me know if that's wrong. Tetra something? I don't know. Rhombus, I think. And so then we're going to drag those in until they are curved, just like the example there. And yeah, that'll do it. So now I can delete this one because make sure you still have the top shape there. I can toggle 3D materials back on. Make sure that I'm selecting 0.02 as the depth for all of these on the extrude side of things. Beautiful. Okay. And I think we have all of our pieces here ready to go. Let me just check. We've got the frame, we have the base, we have this top panel, we have side, lid. Yeah, we're good to go. So let me just add the rest of these things to the export queue. We'll just call this box flap 1. And then this one can be box flap 2. This one will be box flap, just regular. And we already have the top, we have the arch, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, perfect. Now I'm going to come to the asset export panel here, and I'm going to make sure all of the shapes that I made are highlighted, and then come to this drop-down menu, click on OBJ, and then click on export. And you'll get some MTL files. You don't have to worry about those for the purposes of this. That just stores some extra information related to the shapes if you did any materials or lighting inside Illustrator. I typically don't because I find enough tools in Dimension, but you know, they're there. They're an option. Now that I have all of my OBJ files, it's time to put it all together in Adobe Dimension. So go ahead and open up a new canvas. And what I always do is go to this zoom bar, click on 100, and you'll see how small this canvas is. So I'll always size it up close to like 2,000 pixels, you know, whatever fits the shape. But for this, this will give us a high quality rendering along with choosing a resolution of 300 dpi. And now we can start placing stuff in. So I'm going to start with the open box first because I think that that's going to be the hardest. I just like to knock out the hardest parts first. So I'm going to place that box and now zoom in and kind of get it positioned where I think it's going to end up being rendered from. So I'm thinking this is a good angle to go with. And we're just going to call this the main view. We're going to set a camera bookmark. So as I'm assembling and moving things around, I'm able to go back to that main view, go back to home base, and not have to worry about anything getting too crazy. So now I'm going to put in the base. Got to zoom out a little bit. And then I can use the shortcut that says move to ground, and that helps just make sure it's not hiding like underneath the base layer. See, I already need to go back to home base. There we go. That makes sure it's not hiding under the ground, that it's truly on the plane and not being hidden underneath. All right, so then next we'll do the box top, and I'm going to keep everything at a 90 degrees for now. Also, can Dimension import my names yet, like my file names, or why do we always have to do group number? Base, and this is the top. So I'm going to just work from the right angle for now, and then I'll tilt everything back to match that example like it's being opened. But for now, we're just going to put everything together at a right angle and get everything lined up. So let's bring in all of our pieces here, box flap. Here we go. And then we can see how good of a job I actually did getting everything lined up when we go like this. Oh, not very good, right? So what I'm going to do is highlight all of these. So we've got the top and then those things, which I'll name in a minute. We'll center all of them so they're at least on all of the same axis there. This is the long flap. This is flap 2, and this is flap number 1. And so with flap number 1, I'm actually going to rotate that one now because that has its own turning axis, and same with flap number 2. Let's go ahead and get those on a rotation, and they don't have to be the same because ideally in the real world, or realistically in the real world, they wouldn't be. So now we can highlight all of those again and then click on this back button, or the back aligned to the left, and that'll bring it so that the furthest points are all touching on the back, even with the curves, so that as I zoom in, I'm able to get everything lined up. And all of it is just kind of manual, you know, moving things around, seeing what fits, what doesn't. I might need to reduce the height on this a little bit, so let me try like 3.6, because I do want a little bit of a gap, just like the example. Yeah, I think we're looking good. Let me go ahead and rotate, zoom. No, not doing good. Okay. See, that's why it's important to look at a lot of different angles, because you never really can tell until you get everything checked out. So here we go. Let's see how we look from this angle. Now let's go back to home base and see if my tweaking worked, and it looks pretty good to me. So I'm going to go ahead and take these flaps and I'm going to duplicate them, move them over, and then rotate them around and get those lined up on the other side. It's looking good, I think. Ooh, pretty good. I think it just needs to come down just a touch. And so now I can take the top, the long top, and the flaps and group those all together as the lid, and then get that aligned with the base. So gonna use the align tools and just snatch those, but I also need to have the frame in there, the base in the frame, and there we go. So now that I have the lid and everything aligned, I'm going to bring that down until it matches the box here. And then I do want to tilt it back, and I'll end up tilting this bar too, but let's go ahead and tilt the back panel and see if we can get this lined up. How are we looking now? A little off center. And then if I click on the lid folder to undo that, we'll grab the flap ones and the long flap, and we'll go ahead and rotate those forward so that it's like how it would be if it was open. Still a little creased, still a little bent. And then let's see where our camera bookmark is. Yeah, we'll end up zooming in on this a little bit. Let me go ahead and do that because next I'm going to create the closed box. Oh, I almost forgot to add our arches, so I'm going to go ahead and drag these in. I think this adds a really nice realistic touch, so we don't want to forget these. So I'm dragging these in and placing these on each side here. And if we zoom in, we'll get a better view of how it looks, but I think it's looking pretty darn good. Just as like a quick import. So this is the arch, and I'll duplicate that and then drag the other one to the other side, which we will go check out to make sure it's centered, which it's pretty close. We'll move it just a little bit. But yeah, I think that adds like a really nice realistic touch. It looks like it's going to create the flaps where those tabs, the flaps number 1 slide into. So we are good. I am good with this example. All right, and so I'm going to group all of this together just so that it can stay as one piece, and we'll do open box. Okay, and so then I'll duplicate that and I'll drag over here. Well, before I duplicate though, let me go ahead and add some style, some materials to this. So I like a matte finish look for my boxes, so I'm going to go ahead and drag the material to the open box, and you can see it applies the material to all of the objects that are in that same group. So whenever you change one color within the file here, it'll give you that same application to everything. So if I come back here, I want a blue box on the outside. So I'm going to copy that hex value, come back to Dimension, and paste in that hex value right there. You can see that it applies it to all of the OBJ files in the box. If I go ahead and apply some graphics that I have over here, I've sized this to match the inner panel as like a greeting on the inside, so I'll export that as a single asset. I also created this logo by just going to extrude, choosing a depth of 0.04 and then adding a bevel, and I think this will be a nice like embossed moment on top of my box. So I'll go ahead and export that as the inside design and logo emboss. And I think that's about all I want to do. Also, I can just select the inside. If I wanted just a pop of color on the inside, I will just create that as a graphic. So I'll just make that tan. And then selecting the flat designs, I'll choose PNG and export that to my desktop. And then going back to the embossed logo, you want to select OBJ from the dropdown and export that as an OBJ file. So make sure that you are selecting and exporting individually. Don't make a PNG and hope that it's 3D because it won't be. But you can always re-export. There's no big deal. And so then now I'll just drag and drop my graphic onto the box here, get it placed, put it right there in the middle. And then if I want tan on the inside too, that's where I just have this graphic. And I don't know why Dimension is glitching like this with putting graphics in here. But it's really making me angry. So I will show you how to Photoshop that out at the end of the video. That's my best advice. Unfortunately, it's just a glitch that's happening. And then I also think I want to have tan inside, but instead of creating all of the little tabs, I'm just going to go grab the hex value here, and then I'll show you how to ungroup the flaps from the rest of the box. So under lid, I'm just going to come down to each flap, and before I change the color, I'm going to click on this break link to material, that little chain link, and that'll make sure that I can paste in my hex value and change that for just the top section. So I can have a different color for different pieces. They don't all have to be uniform. Oopsie, if you don't click on the link there, then it just goes right to changing the whole entire box. So make sure that you click on the link and then click on the color and then go to the next one, open that one up, link, color, and that gives you the nice pop of color on the inside. If you still wanted the outside to be blue, you'd apply that graphic, but you do have to choose one base material for the entire object, not just per side per se. So now I'm going to come over and add some lighting effects just so I can get a handle on shadows and how it's going to look when it's done. So I'm going to bring the intensity down and let's preview how this is going to look. It's looking a little bright. So I need to bring the intensity like way down for everything. The environment light, the environment global lighting, bringing that down. I also like to bring the shadow opacity to like 50%, just so that it's a little bit of a softer look. But you do you. If you want the intensity, go for the intensity. I tend to like a little bit less. And then I can also globally rotate it. So if I wanted a little bit more light shining into the box, I can do that as well. I think that looks really lovely. All right, so now that I have the open box, I can duplicate that now because we already have our styles built in, and create the closed box. And I'm gonna position this again as such. And now we just get to delete some panels and rotate some pieces, and we'll have the same design on the top and the bottom, and then we'll also put in our logo. So just hang on a sec. All right, so with the lid, we can go ahead and delete flaps 1 and 2. We just won't need those because we only really will focus on the top. Rotation. We'll go ahead and close the lid here, and then we'll bring the long flap. The long flap will bring over, and now I'm just getting stuff in position here. I'm rotating it. For the purposes of it looking closed, we can also increase the width a little bit. So I'm gonna go for 5.8, maybe 6. 6 might be good. That'll look like it's closed and tucked in. It's harder to tell when it's open, but when it's closed, you definitely see the similarities there. And then I also want to change the color back for the closed box because I want the outside to be blue. All right, and let me rotate and see. It looks pretty good. It looks pretty aligned. I'm happy with that. Now I can bring in my logo emboss. And I'm thinking silver for Silver Moon. So I'm just going to drag until it pops through just enough and get it pretty centered on the box. I'm going to eyeball it, but again, feel free to use the align tools to get it perfect. And then I'm going to grab this silver metallic look and drag it to the entire folder so it applies it to everything. And then just open one of these subgroups so that I can adjust the roughness. I can add any scratches or intensity, but I think that's going to look really good. And then drag it into the closed folder there. And then let's look at the main view again. I'm liking that a lot. Maybe we'll move the closed box a little bit closer. Yeah, so this graphic on the top, we're definitely going to Photoshop it, but I'm just going to click on it real quick and make the roughness 100%, and that'll help get rid of the edges a little bit. But if you still see edges at the end, I'll show you how to Photoshop it because I did have another example of where there were more edges showing, and I'll just show you a quick trick for that. And then also how to remove this glitch that Dimension is giving me. I hate it, but you know, it happens. So we're just going to work with what you got, or what Dimension gives us. It's still easier than any other 3D software. So, okay, then once you have it saved, come over to the Render tab, click on the camera bookmark that you named in the other panel, and then make sure it's PSD, and then click Render. All right, so now that I have my PSD rendered, I'm going to open it up in Photoshop Beta. This has some really cool AI tools, and I'm going to show you how to use those. So I'm going to take the Select tool with this layer selected, and I'm going to draw a box around this freaking glitch that Adobe Illustrator delivered to me. And with this generative fill, I'm going to type in remove box, and then click Generate, and fingers crossed, it removes the box. If not, I'll show you how to do it the old school way. I grew up before AI. Obviously, I've been in the industry 10 years, so I've seen a lot, but this is like a lifesaver. If you don't like that highlight, there are some other options here in this variation section of the properties box, but you know, I'm kind of fine with the highlight. I kind of dig it. I think that looks good. Also, you can see that I placed this graphic and I sized it a little too small, and you can kind of see the border. So what I can do there is I like to use this patch tool, honestly, and I just highlight the edge there. And then on this layer, I just drag it to another smooth area, and it smooths out that line. It gets rid of it. And that's all I'm looking to do. The only trick is that you do need to have a surface that is exactly that width, or as you can see, I dragged it over there. It gives me that little line, but that's okay because I just drag around with this patch tool until all of those edges are gone. So it helps when you have something that's a solid texture the entire length of your thing that you're trying to patch, and you don't have to make it a perfect line either. It just fixes it. I mean, it even fixed that corner. I'm going to just do one more for good luck, but that smooths the edges. So don't be afraid to like Photoshop some things sometimes. Like you could clean up any little boo-boos that you made, but that's how you make it. So I'm going to export it now. Thanks for watching. All right, designers, great job. You made it through. I'm so proud of you for sticking through to the very end. Hopefully your mock-up of your shipping box, your mailer box, is something that you can use in your portfolio, use to impress your clients. If you have a minute to subscribe or leave a comment again with any questions that you have or any mock-ups that you want to see me create in the future, leave those below. And as always, thank you so much for all of the comments and love and support. I'm happy to be back.